Friends, today we are going to discuss about nature of organizing, entrepreneuring and re-engineering. In this chapter, we are going to discuss about the purpose of an organization structure, the meaning of organization and organizing, the distinction between formal and informal organization, how organization structure and their levels are due to the limitations of the span of management, then the exact number of people a manager can effectively supervise, which depends on a number of underlying variable and situations. Then we are going to talk about the nature of entrepreneuring and intrapreneuring, then the key aspects and limitations of re-engineering, the logic of organizing and its relationship to other managerial functions. Their organizing requires taking situations into account is one thing that also we will be discussing. Friends, it is said that good people can make any organization structure work. But suppose if these good people are given proper roles to perform, then they can work more effectively. So what we can understand from organizational roles? For an organizational role to exist and be meaningful, it must incorporate verifiable objectives, which are a major part of planning process. Then there should be a clear idea of major duties or activities involved and an understood area of discretion or authority so that the person filling the role knows that he or she can do to accomplish the goal set for him. What does organizing involve then? It has the identification and classification of required activities. Then comes the grouping of activities necessary to attain objectives. The assignment of each grouping to a manager with the authority given, that means the delegation necessary to supervise it. And of course, the provision for coordination horizontally, that means on the same or a similar organizational level, and vertically also, which means corporate headquarters, divisions and department wise in that whole organization structure. Then how can we define organization? Organization implies a formalized, intentional structure of roles or positions. Here the words formalized and intentional structure are very important to understand any organization. What is formal and informal organization then? A formal organization means it pertains to the intentional structure of roles in a formally organized enterprise, whereas the informal organization is a network of interpersonal relationships that arise when people associate with each other. Formal organizations will have a proper structure, hierarchy, task and role identification, then performance measurement, coordination and control measures undertaken. Whereas in informal organizations, they will be found basically because of certain routines followed by people, like for example meeting in clubs or meeting on tennis courts. So these people will be forming an informal organization. Then what is a department? It comes under the organization. The department designates a distinct area, division or a branch of an organization over which a manager has authority for the performance of specified goals or specified activities. Then let us talk about organization and the span of organizations. We have to look at now organizations with narrow span. If you can look into the slide, you will see that in this type of structure, 2 or 3 people report to one manager, 2 or 3 such managers report to further or his superior, then such 3 or 4 people report to the top boss. So this is called a narrow span of operation. What happens over here is there is better control over people working under you, there is better communication because of narrow span, and there is also better supervision. Then comes organizations with wide span. In the slide you can see that more than 7 to 8 or 9, 10 people are reporting to one person, and such 9, 10 people are reporting to a higher authority. So this is called as wide span. In wide span it is difficult to reach the top boss because a clear hierarchical definition is not provided in this. In the wide span organization, what happens is that the superiors are overloaded with work. So sometimes they prove or act as a bottlenecks in decision making. Then there is also requirement of this type of span of organization is that each and every manager has to be very efficient. Then only certain work can be delegated to them so that the top manager can work efficiently and effectively. So what is the principle of span of management? The principle of span of management states that there is a limit to the number of subordinates any single manager can handle, so that he can take their work effectively and efficiently. He can also effectively supervise only limited number of people, but the exact number will depend on the impact of underlying factors. What are these factors? When there is little or no training, inadequate or unclear authority delegation, unclear plans for non-repetitive operations, such type of things when they exist, you should have a narrow span of organization so that you can determine the fast changes in external and internal environments. There is use of poor or inappropriate communication techniques, including vague instructions. There is ineffective interaction of superior and subordinate. Ineffective meetings happen because that's a closed group. The greater number of specialities at lower and middle levels. Incompetent and untrained managers are there. Complex tasks, when such type of complex tasks are existing, then you need only 2 or 3 people under you so that you can supervise their work very efficiently. Narrow span is required when your subordinates are unwilling to assume responsibility and reasonable risk they are not willing to take. Then they are immature. When subordinates are immature or you can't give them proper training or the time is limited to train them, then in that case also you should have a narrow span of organization. Where you can use wide span of organization. When there is thorough training of subordinates available, there is clear delegation to undertake well-defined tasks, well-defined plans for repetitive operations. When they are clear-cut mentioned in the organization, you can definitely have a wide span of organization. Then when there are verifiable objectives are used as standards, there are slow changes in external and internal environment. So that means lot of things are not required to be considered for day-to-day operations of the managers. There you can have a wide span of organization. Then use of appropriate techniques such as proper organization structure, written and oral communications. In organization where this is clear-cut mentioned, in that case also you can have wide span of organization. Then when there are effective meetings taking place, greater number of specialization at upper levels is there. Then competent and trained managers are available under the top level managers, and basically the tasks are simple to manage. In that case also you can have wide span of organization. Then when subordinates are willing to assume responsibility and reasonable risk, and they are also mature subordinates whom you can delegate the work faithfully, or trusting them you can give the work so that they can carry out these functions effectively and efficiently even though you may not be available in the office. So in that case also you can have a wide span of organization.